Hi, Kevin here. Welcome to the Claremont Classic Garage. It's the last week in May. It's sizzling hot outside. It's humid. My kind of weather. I've been plugging away trying to get this thing out to show it to you. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to another member of our fleet. Allow me to introduce you to Project Mordoor. This is a 1971 Plymouth Valiant sedan. It's sold new in Toronto, Ontario, and spent its whole life in the Greater Toronto area. It's got 80,000 miles on it since new. It's never been painted. It's never had a stitch touched in the interior. It's pretty much a totally original car, with the exception of the left fender, which was changed or bonded up and repainted somewhere along the line. This car was sold new at Ontario Automobile on Bay Street in Toronto, which is quite strange in my situation because I also have another car that's completely original that was sold at the same dealership. And oddly enough, both of them, despite being nice, clean, original cars, have had the left fender painted. On the other one, it was actually replaced. This one, I've never really determined if it was just repainted, repaired, replaced. I'm not sure. They did a terrible job matching the paint, I can tell you that. When I got this car, it had around 70,000 miles on it. So it's had about 10,000 put on it. We've had it kicking around here since 1999. I've actually owned this car twice. The first time I owned it from 99 till about 01, when my father-in-law wanted something light with a stick shift that he could tow behind his camper. Oh yeah, that's another cool thing about this car. It's a stick shift. So I kind of sold it to him for what I had in it, and he kept it for quite a few years. And then when he was done with it, I bought it back off him. He did a little bit of work to it. This car was a Z-Bar time capsule. Even under the hood, the entire engine compartment was caked with Z-Bar. He's a trooper. He spent the entire winter with Varsol and scrub brushes and got all the Z-Bar out of the engine compartment. It's still all over the bottom of it. I'll never take that off. But anyway, if you want to have a look. While he was at it, he cleaned up the engine a bit. And then I took it even further when I got it back. So this here is the original 225 engine that the car was born with. Deb's dad cleaned it up once, and then when I got the car the second time, I wanted to do a couple of things to it. Number one, I wanted to put a synchronized transmission in it, and one thing led to another, and next thing you know, the engine was out of it and it was all apart. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. The engine was perfect, but I said, you know what, I'm doing all this, let's have a go at the engine. So the short block, it just came apart. We deglazed the bores, and because everything on it is standard, it was pretty easy to source all NOS parts to put it back together. So NOS rings, NOS bearings, NOS gaskets, we put it all back together. The cylinder head, I sent it out, had it milled somewhere between 80 and 100 thou. The guy put the bull hog down into the bowls. When he also put hard seats in the exhaust valves. Believe it or not, I didn't have to touch the guides. They were perfect. He just gave it a valve job. And when I got it back, I cleaned up the ports a little bit. It's got a Comp 260 cam in it. Other stuff that we did to it, I wanted to upgrade it to a 2-barrel. So with the prices that people are getting for the cast iron 2-barrel intakes off Ferraris, I said, no, I'm not doing that. And I didn't want to go as far as buying a Clifford intake and putting the 390 Holley and all that on it. I just wanted a 2-barrel. So what we did, we got aluminum 1-barrel slant 6 intake off an old pickup truck. I made a 2-barrel sized flange, had a guy TIG weld it on there for me, and then we bored the 2 throttle bores, drilled and tapped for the 4 studs. I put a BBD from a 71 318 on top of it, because 71, you know, it's got the extra few emissions hookup. So that stuff all just plugged right back in like it was supposed to. And on the 318 BBD, I just had to change a couple of bits of the choke linkage to one from a slant 6 2-barrel carburetor to make it work properly, because the slant 6 choke pulls down on an angle, whereas the V8 one pulls up and down. And they made just a little change on the bell crank to accommodate that. So that's pretty much it. Other stuff I did while I was under the hood, I went to a maximum cooling rad from a 73 A body, 73 or 74. It was having, with the 323 gear that's in it, it was having a hard time keeping its cool on the highway. Now with this 22-inch rad, no problem at all. I can run the thing all day. It's got a nice clutch fan on it now. Other stuff that I did, the exhaust manifold. Even on the Super 6, they put a 2 1/4 exhaust on the Super 6, but they never did anything to the exhaust manifold. So I had this one bored out to 2 1/4. So it's bored basically up into the plenum or the collector, whatever you'd want to call it, where all the runners converge. So it's truly a 2 1/4 outlet exhaust manifold. Then we built a dual exhaust system using the front bit of a slant 6 Super 6 front pipe from a Volare, because on the Volare the exhaust crosses over to the passenger side of the car, whereas it runs down the driver's side on an A body. So that made it really easy. So basically, you can see down there, my original exhaust is just grafted into the Super 6 head pipe. That takes care of the left side of the exhaust, and then the right side of the exhaust, once that crosses over to the other side of the car, it's just another slant 6 single exhaust that I had kicking around. I had to cut the head pipe into 2 or 3 pieces and reclock it a little bit to make it kind of a mirror image for the other side of the car. And same thing with the tailpipes. You could still buy, when I did this anyway, you could still buy a 1 3/4 inch Walker A-body tailpipe. So I bought 2 of those. The driver's side one, of course, just went on. And the passenger side one, I had to cut it into 3 or 4 pieces, reclock it all, weld it all back together. I'll insert a picture of the whole exhaust system laying on the floor of my shop before I put it on. I put it on with just turn downs. I didn't want the big tips or anything sticking out the back of it. It's just not that kind of car. But it works. It sounds nice when it's idling. And I think it works pretty good. Underneath the car while I was at it, you can see I changed it to big bolt pattern. It's got the big bolt pattern disc brakes on the front. The rear end, it's still got a 7 1/4. It's still got a 7 1/4 rear end in it. But this car came from the factory with a 323 gear in the 7 1/4. I stumbled onto a really, really nice tight original sure grip unit for a 7 1/4 from a 66 Valiant. So I got a big bolt pattern A-body rear end from the wreckers, and out of the 3 rear ends I made a big bolt pattern 323 sure grip 7 1/4, and the car loves it, especially with these little bit bigger wheels on it. They're 215 65/15 on 15x7 M body. That's a Chrysler 5th Avenue wheels all the way around. It's got 340 torsion bars in the front. It's got an extra leaf in the back. It's got KYB gas adjust shocks. It's got ADCO sway bars front and rear. It's a pretty fun car to drive. You can see underneath here how the light is. There you can see. I don't know. I made a funny marking on the rear end just to make people talk. There you can see the exhaust pipes. Look at the bottom of this car. It's like perfect. There's the funny 1971 emission stuff. It still has it. Car was built in Hamtramck. And that's the bottom of it. But it's solid as a rock. The floors in it are perfect. The rails in it are perfect. Everything's perfect. The only real rot on it is the passenger side fender at the bottom has a hole about the size of a quarter in it. It's got the usual Valiant thing here at each end of the bumper, and a little issue there in the inner fender, which I fixed by putting a bumper bolt in it. Onto the inside. So this interior, it's the original interior from the car. It's never been touched. I don't think anybody's ever even sat in the back seat. It has a rear defroster. The option list is pretty short on this. It's got an AM radio and a rear defroster. And for some strange reason, bumper guards. The bumper guards I always thought were added to it, but lo and behold, they're on the build sheet. That mirror is not on the build sheet. Somebody's added that. Well, maybe the hole in the fender's on the other side. It ain't on this side. Or maybe it's the whole other car I'm thinking of. When you have too many cars, you start to get them confused mentally. Yeah, I guess it's not this car that has a hole in the fender. So, inside you can see here. It's got a day-night mirror too. Wow, fancy stuff, eh? A thing I get a charge out of is these little stickers on the speedometer. Here in Canada, in the 1970s, when they shoved metric down our throats, the Canadian government sent everybody packs of these little stickers to put on the speedometer of their car. So somebody put these on in probably 1972 or 1973. Who was I to argue? I just left them there. It's a bit of Canadiana for you. Here's the switch for the rear defroster. The pedals. Like I say, one thing I did do, this car originally had an A903, which is a very, very small, light-duty, non-synchronized 3-speed transmission. Well, I say non-synchronized. It's not synchronized first gear. Second and third are synchronized, so you're stuck all the time with second and third, which is a bear in traffic because sometimes you just want to pull it down into low, right? And the only way to get it in low, you literally have to stop, wait for everything to stop turning, and then kind of jiggle it into low. So a buddy of mine was scrapping a 75 or 76 Valiant, and it had a synchronized transmission. Not the A230 that we're all familiar with. This one was an A390, which is actually a Tremec T150, which is a reasonably heavy-duty transmission. It was used in half-ton vans, Jeeps. It can take a little bit of business, and it's fully synchronized. So I got that off of him, and had to muck around with the linkage a little bit because, of course, this one was old. It just had the linkage was just with cotter pins through it, and the newer one was with those snap-together plastic grommets. So we had to monkey around a little bit with that. The new transmission used a cross shaft for second and third, whereas this one just used 2 rods. So it was a bit of part scrounging, but in the end, we got it all together and got it all working, and I'm very, very glad I did it. I love driving this car. We call it the rain car. So when we're going out to cruise night and we look and it looks like it might rain, we take this car. It's comfortable. I feel safe driving it in any kind of weather. The windshield wipers work good. It's got good ventilation. So that's the rain car. Anyway, I hope you like this little Valiant as much as we like it. Oh, I got more stuff to show you. So here in the glove box, and we've got all the original manuals, the 1971 original manuals that came with the car. It's pretty cool. I also have I used to have the cam card in here for the camshaft that we put in it. I don't know where the heck it is. Anyway, it's a Comp 260. It's 260 duration, 440 lift or something like that. It's pretty much about as far as you can go on a slant 6 without having to mess with rockers and stuff like that. We just upgraded to a brand new set of 318 valve springs, which is what everybody recommended. And this thing, let me tell you, it runs like a train. I'm going to fire it up now. Maybe we'll drive it around the farm a little bit here, and you can see how it goes. Here's a trim tag. Not too much stuff on this one, eh? It was built on the 10th of May, 1971. And it has a BVON, whatever that means. I know sometimes guys point that out on on the Mopar Fender Tag group on Facebook. They say, oh, it's got a BVON. Could somebody please explain to me if that's good or bad? The car was built in Hamtramck. I think I mentioned that already. It's odd. I've got 4A bodies. They're all Hamtramck built. Weird. I don't have any Windsor cars here. Okay, let's see if we can crank it up. You got to be careful with this. With that V8 carburetor, you pump the gas and you're taking the plugs out. So it's got an interlock on the shifter. It's got to be in reverse to start it or stop it. You can't get the key out if it's in any gear but reverse. So we're going to pull it down into neutral. Put the handbrake on. Okay. There she is running. I couldn't help myself. I had to make a little double snorkel air cleaner for it. Why not? There's so many slant 6 air cleaners laying around. Well, I guess this would have been a 318 air cleaner because it fits the BBD. Let's go see if we can get a listen to the exhaust. The heat riser rattles in it too. See, you can't even hear the cam, but it still sounds good. All right, let me close the hood and we'll go for a spin. I love this car. All right. R for racing. Standard steering and standard brake too. Which is good. It makes you use your brain when you're driving, eh? First gear. Second gear. And see, like I said with these cars, which I could never do it before, if you're in a parking lot, while you're rolling, you can pull it down into low. That's so nice to be able to do that. Their way of making up for it, what they did was they cheated with second gear. On an old non-synchronized 3-speed transmission, they knew you'd have to creep around in second all the time, so second is really first and a half. So the damn cars will come out of the hole like rockets. You put them in second gear and it's really close to first. It's like close ratio. But man, you really gotta wind them out before you put them in third, or they go purr. That standard steering, I don't find it that bad. It's a light car. The wide tires on the front kind of make it harder than it should be, but I don't care. I don't drive it that much. Goes pretty good, man. This thing has got torque like you wouldn't believe. Just gobs and gobs and mountains of 6-cylinder torque. Oh, there's the Holiday Rumbler. So, I hope you enjoyed your tour of Project Mordoor. I'm glad to have it back out. I don't think I had it out at all last year, judging by the old license plate sticker that was on it. So, this year, I promise, it's going to get out and get some miles put on it. Anyway, till next time, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Claremont Classic Garage. And don't forget, down below. Like button, share button, comment box, and the subscribe button. I love sharing all this stuff with you guys. It's just a fantastic world, this world of cars that's been given to us, and we should all enjoy it. Anyway, until next time, thanks and so long.